Nobody robbed you. Nobody tricked you. You did it to yourself, one scroll at a time. You saw something. You wanted it. You bought it. And before you even had time to question the decision, the package was already on its way. This is the story of the most sophisticated wealth extraction system ever built. It does not wear a mask. It does not force your hand. It simply shows you things, beautiful, aspirational, perfectly timed things, and waits for your brain chemistry to do the rest. Right now, as you watch this, social media platforms are generating over $600,000 every single minute in advertising revenue. That is not a yearly figure. That is not monthly. That is every 60 seconds, around the clock, on every continent, in every time zone, without interruption. That money came from somewhere. It came from people who believed they were simply browsing. This is not a story about screen time. This is not a warning about social media addiction. This is a story about your money, where it is going, why it is going there, and whether you have any real say in the matter. In 2023, global social media advertising revenue crossed $225 billion. By 2027, that figure is projected to exceed $300 billion. For context, $225 billion is larger than the entire GDP of Portugal. It exceeds the combined annual economic output of dozens of nations across Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. And every single dollar of it was generated by convincing ordinary people to want things they had not planned to buy. This is not a peripheral feature of these platforms. It is the entire business model. These companies do not charge you for access. They do not sell you a subscription. They give you the product entirely for free. Because you are not the customer, you are the inventory. Your attention is packaged and sold to the highest bidding advertiser thousands of times a day with a precision that would have been considered science fiction 30 years ago. The platforms know what you looked at this morning. They know how long you paused on a specific image. They know the difference between a scroll and a linger. And they use every fragment of that behavioral data to construct a version of your desires that is more accurate than anything you could articulate yourself. Studies show that over 70% of impulse purchases today are directly influenced by social media content. These platforms are not passive channels where content happens to exist. They are precision-engineered commercial environments, and the product being sold in every case is a version of you that has not yet spent money. To understand why this system works so effectively across so many people, across so many cultures and income levels, you need to understand three powerful forces that operate on your mind simultaneously every time you open one of these applications. The human brain is not designed for the modern internet. It evolved over hundreds of thousands of years in an environment where novelty was rare, social approval was scarce, and information arrived slowly. Every like, every comment, every share, every notification triggers a release of dopamine, the same neurochemical that rewards eating, sex, and survival. The brain cannot distinguish between a meaningful social interaction and a stranger tapping a heart icon beneath your photograph. Both feel like validation. Both feel like reward. Tristan Harris, former design ethicist at Google and co-founder of the Center for Human Technology, described the design philosophy of social platforms as a race to the bottom of the brainstem. A competition among some of the most talented engineers and designers on Earth to find the most primitive, most irresistible triggers in human psychology and to exploit them for commercial gain. When you are in a state of emotional activation, when your dopamine system is engaged, your capacity for rational financial decision-making is significantly compromised.
you become significantly more likely to act on impulse, to discount future consequences, and to prioritize immediate gratification over long-term financial well-being. The Buy Now button does not appear when you are calm and deliberate. It appears at the exact moment the algorithm has determined that your emotional guard is the lowest and your desire is the highest. In 1954, the psychologist Leon Festinger published a paper that would eventually be recognized as one of the most important contributions to social psychology of the 20th century. His social comparison theory proposed that human beings have a deep, fundamental drive to evaluate themselves by comparing themselves to others. Social media has taken this ancient, hardwired instinct and weaponized it at industrial scale.
The curated social world you inhabit on these platforms is not a representative sample of human life. It is the most aspirational, most filtered, most carefully constructed version of other people's lives, optimized for maximum emotional impact. Nobody posts a photograph of their overdraft statement. Nobody shares a video about the credit card debt that funded their holiday. What you see is a distillation of the best moments of other people's lives, presented as if it were their everyday reality. And your brain, using the same social comparison machinery that helped your ancestors survive, concludes that everyone around you is living better than you are. The economist Thorstein Veblen gave this dynamic its most famous name in 1899. In his landmark book, The Theory of the Leisure Class, Veblen described what he called conspicuous consumption, the practice of spending money not to meet genuine needs, but to signal wealth, status, and belonging to others. Social media did not invent conspicuous consumption. What social media did was take a phenomenon previously limited by geography and social circle and scale it to billions of simultaneous comparisons happening in real time every hour of every day. In 1984, the psychologist Robert Cialdini published a book that would quietly become one of the most influential texts in the history of marketing, Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion. Scarcity, social proof, authority, reciprocity, liking, commitment. Every countdown timer is a scarcity trigger. Every 10 million people bought this banner is social proof. Every creator with a verified badge and 1 million followers is an authority signal. Every parasocial relationship between a viewer and a creator is a liking lever. And every previous purchase, every wish list item, every saved post is a commitment anchor. These are not coincidences. They are the deliberate, documented, measurable outputs of behavioral engineering operations that employ thousands of people and cost billions of dollars to maintain. Influencer marketing is now a $21 billion global industry. It operates across every platform, every niche, every demographic, and every country with reliable internet access. And it is built, from its foundations, on the monetization of something that is extremely difficult to manufacture and extremely easy to destroy: genuine human trust. When a creator you have followed for 3 years looks directly into a camera and says with warmth and apparent sincerity that a product has changed their life, your brain does not process that as an advertisement. Your brain processes it as a recommendation from a trusted friend. The neurological response is measurably similar, the emotional weight is comparable, and the commercial outcome is dramatically more powerful than any traditional advertisement could produce. Morgan Housel, in his widely celebrated book, The Psychology of Money, wrote that true wealth is not what you earn, it is what you do not spend. He argued that the gap between income and consumption is where genuine financial independence is constructed, quietly, invisibly, over years and decades of restraint and intention. Social media and the influencer economy that sits within it is a direct and sustained assault on that gap. The disclosure problem makes this considerably worse. In many countries, regulations require influencers to disclose paid partnerships. In practice, those disclosures are frequently buried. The emotional impression has already been made before most viewers reach the disclosure. The transaction has already been triggered before the hashtag is noticed. There is a third layer to this system that is less discussed but arguably more dangerous than either the psychological manipulation or the influencer economy. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest have systematically eliminated the distance between desire and transaction. There is no longer a journey from inspiration to purchase, no separate browser tab, no checkout page on an external site, no moment of pause in which a buyer might reconsider. Tim Wu, in his book The Attention Merchants, described attention as the foundational currency of the digital economy.
Every moment of friction in the purchase process is a moment in which attention might escape. Friction is the enemy of the platform's commercial model, and so friction has been systematically, methodically, and deliberately engineered away. Services like Klarna, Afterpay, and Affirm have integrated directly into social commerce platforms. They offer something psychologically devastating: the complete separation of desire from cost. Research in behavioral economics consistently shows that installment payment structures reduce the perceived cost of a purchase by between 30 and 50%. The item feels cheaper, the decision feels safer, and the financial consequence, $200 of debt, is deferred into a future that feels comfortably distant in the moment of desire. The combination of in-app commerce and buy now, pay later creates a purchase environment of almost frictionless instant gratification, layered directly inside the dopamine-triggering, social comparison-activating, influencer-populated feed. There is a fourth dimension to this problem that financial planners consistently identify as one of the most dangerous and least visible threats to long-term wealth building: lifestyle inflation. As your behavior on these platforms reveals higher purchasing power, the algorithm adjusts your feed upward. It does not show you the same content when you earn more. It upgrades the tier of aspiration. The brands get more expensive. The holidays get more remote. The restaurants get harder to book. The algorithm tracks the ceiling of your desire and raises it continuously. Wealth, as Morgan Housel wrote, is invisible by definition. The person with genuine financial security does not look wealthy on social media. They look ordinary. Genuine wealth is built through accumulation, through the compounding of savings and investments over time, not through the visible consumption of premium goods and experiences. Warren Buffett, perhaps the most successful investor in human history, has lived in the same modest house in Omaha, Nebraska that he purchased in 1958 for $31,500. His public persona is a deliberate and instructive rejection of conspicuous consumption, a living demonstration that the accumulation of genuine wealth and the display of wealth are not only different things, but are frequently in direct opposition to each other. No examination of social media's financial impact would be complete without addressing what has become one of the most consequential and least regulated phenomena in contemporary personal finance: the rise of the financial influencer. Some of this content is genuinely valuable: accessible explanations of investment principles, honest discussions of debt management, practical guidance on budgeting and saving. But the finfluencer economy has a structural problem. The incentive of a content creator is not your financial outcome. The incentive of a content creator is engagement, reach, and monetization. Content that is nuanced, cautious, and appropriately uncertain does not perform well on social media algorithms. Content that is bold, confident, urgent, and aspirational performs extremely well. The 60-second stock tip, the guaranteed passive income system, the real estate strategy that anyone can follow, the cryptocurrency opportunity that is closing in 48 hours. These formats thrive on social media not because they produce good financial outcomes for their audiences, but because they produce engagement. Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize-winning psychologist and economist, spent his career studying the gap between human confidence and human accuracy. In his landmark book, Thinking, Fast and Slow, he documented what he called the illusion of validity, the persistent human tendency to feel confident in judgments that the evidence does not support. The finfluencer economy is, in many respects, an industrial-scale production of the illusion of validity, a vast, engaging, algorithmically amplified demonstration of confident financial claims made by people with limited accountability. Consider a young professional, 26 years old, working in Lagos, Nairobi, Sao Paulo, or Manila. She earns a decent salary. She has savings goals written in a notebook. She understands, in principle, the importance of building financial security. But every morning before she gets out of bed, she opens Instagram or TikTok for 20 minutes. She sees a friend's holiday in Santorini, a creator she admires wearing a limited edition sneaker, a finfluencer explaining why now is the perfect time to buy a particular asset, a countdown timer on a product she has been watching for a week. Her financial plan did not account for any of this, but her credit card will. Research from the Financial Health Network found that consumers who regularly shop through social media platforms spend on average 25 to 30% more per month than those who do not, even after controlling for income differences. That gap, compounded across 5 years, represents a potentially life-changing difference in savings and investment. Now, multiply that individual experience across hundreds of millions of people on every continent, at every income level, doing the same thing every single day. That is no longer a personal finance story. That is a structural economic phenomenon, a systematic transfer of wealth from consumers to platforms, from the present to an expensive future, from financial security to financial fragility, happening quietly, continuously, and almost entirely without public debate or regulatory scrutiny. As Warren Buffett observed, if you buy things you do not need, soon you will have to sell things you do need. Social media has industrialized the buying things you do not need. The consequences: depleted emergency funds, unserviceable consumer debt, retirement accounts that are never opened, financial goals that are permanently deferred, are carried entirely by the individual. The platforms carry none of the risk. They collect their revenue regardless of whether you could afford what you bought, regardless of whether the purchase made you happy, and regardless of what it costs you in the long run. So what do you actually do with this understanding? The answer is not to leave social media. The answer is to understand the system clearly enough to make conscious choices within it. To become, as Charlie Munger would say, a rational actor in an environment deliberately designed to prevent rational action. Charlie Munger, the late investor and longtime partner of Warren Buffett, said with characteristic directness, "Show me the incentive and I will show you the outcome." Apply that framework to social media. The incentive of every platform is to maximize the time you spend on it and the money you spend through it. The outcome of that incentive, operating at scale across billions of users, is entirely predictable. The only meaningful question is whether you will be a conscious participant in that system or an unconscious one. The first practice, the 24-hour rule. Make a personal commitment. Never purchase anything you first encountered on social media within 24 hours of seeing it. Research in behavioral economics consistently shows that the desire to make an impulse purchase decays rapidly over time. The item that felt essential at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday frequently feels unnecessary by 11 p.m. on Wednesday. The 24-hour rule gives your System 2 brain, in Daniel Kahneman's framework, the time it needs to evaluate what your System 1 brain has already decided. The second practice is feed auditing. Your social media feed is a financial environment. Treat it with the same intentionality you would apply to your investment portfolio. What you consume visually and intellectually every day shapes what you desire, what you value, and what you believe is normal and achievable. A feed saturated with luxury goods, aspirational travel, and conspicuous consumption will make you feel financially inadequate regardless of your actual income. Unfollow deliberately. Curate ruthlessly. Build a feed that reflects the life you are actually building, rather than the life that algorithms believe will maximize your spending. The third practice is separating entertainment from financial decision-making entirely. Your phone, when you're scrolling social media, is an entertainment device. Your financial decisions deserve an entirely different context. They deserve silence, research, comparison, and deliberate thought. Make a physical and temporal separation between the two activities. Financial decisions are made at a desk, with a notepad, without notifications. Entertainment happens on the couch. The algorithm does not get to be present at your financial planning sessions. The fourth practice is understanding the real cost of visible wealth. Every dollar spent on visible consumption is a dollar that does not compound. A $500 impulse purchase made at age 25, invested instead in a diversified index fund at a modest 7% annual return, becomes approximately $3,800 by age 65.
Not $500, nearly $4,000. Every visible purchase has an invisible opportunity cost, a future sum that will never exist because a present sum was spent to signal status to people who will, in most cases, neither notice nor remember. The most financially successful person in any given social feed is almost certainly not the one posting the most. They are the quiet one. The one building something real, in the silence between decisions, away from the feed and its manufactured desires and its engineered urgency and its billion-dollar machinery of beautiful, irresistible, expensive things. Social media is not going away. The platforms will continue to grow, to improve their targeting, to reduce friction, to integrate commerce more deeply into every moment of your digital life. The tools of persuasion will become more sophisticated, not less. The influencer economy will expand. The buy now, pay later infrastructure will become more embedded. None of that needs to make you poorer, but it will unless you understand what you are dealing with. You are not a passive user of these platforms. You are a target, a carefully profiled, algorithmically understood, behaviorally predictable source of revenue, whose desires have been mapped, whose triggers have been identified, and whose wallet is, at this very moment, being approached with extraordinary precision and care. Knowing that changes everything, because the only advantage the system does not have, the only variable it cannot fully control, is your awareness of the system itself. As the philosopher and writer Nassim Nicholas Taleb once observed, the three most harmful addictions are heroin, carbohydrates, and a monthly salary. To that list we might now add a fourth, the scroll. Protect your attention, protect your desire, protect the silence between your decisions. That silence is where wealth is built. This has been Alpha Fiscal Mindset. Study the system, understand the mechanism, build accordingly.